Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about the Utah franchise that's coming in. And I want to talk about this in a way that's similar but not the same as this series I'm doing on teams that missed the playoffs. And where we look at where they're at and where they're going, that kind of thing. And I started that yesterday with San Jose and got a coach fired. So the Arizona Coyotes, a team that never had real success on the ice. They had a really solid run once. They get to the conference final. Outside of that, mostly disappointment in their time in the desert. So we'll see how things go in Utah. But I think the foundation is there for a pretty good team. And what's sad, if you're a Coyotes fan, is this summer was shaping up to be a pretty big one for this franchise because of the amount of expiring contracts, because of the amount of cap space, and the fact this team was getting better. Like, it's been incremental improvements for the Arizona Coyotes, so I understand most people may not pay a lot of attention, but let's look at it. So I went back to 2019 2020. They finished 33, 29, and 8. They ended up qualifying for the playoffs because the playoffs got expanded in 2020. The NHL paused in March, and when it came back in April, they were like, all right, we'll allow 24 teams in. Technically, we'll have play-in rounds to decide those final seeds, but the Coyotes ended up getting in because they beat Nashville in the qualifying round, and then they lost in the first round of the playoffs against Colorado in 5. They only won one of those games because Darcy Kemper played out of his mind in that series. 2020, 2021, they finished 24, 26, and 6. I believe that was the summer they announced they were doing a rebuild, which was an odd choice because this was an Arizona team that hadn't made the playoffs outside of those expanded playoffs in quite some time. So the idea was, well, we're going to tear it down. And I wasn't sure what they were tearing down, and I thought it was an odd strategy. Now, the following season, they end up 25, 50, and 7. Again, that's by design, by tearing everything down. Last year, 2022, 2023, they end up 28, 40, and 14. And so it's an improvement that year. And I felt like, there's a lot of good players here. They could get a lot better. I felt like they could be 500 this year. They were close ish. They end up 36, 41, and 5. But they were in a playoff spot early in the season. They had a pretty strong first half. And then the second half, everything fell apart. And there's been speculation that part of the reason it fell apart is because of all the uncertainty about what's going to happen with the team off the ice and just distractions. I do think that being in a new location and having that uncertainty, that cloud lifted off of them, is going to make this team, I would say 10 points better would make a lot of sense over an 82 game schedule. So 5 more wins, why not? And then there's other improvements that can be made. Now, Utah has gone with the trademark application route. There's 8 different teams they've got the trademark, or they've applied for the trademark on. Mammoth, Ice, Yetis, Venom, Fury, Blizzard, Outlaws, and Utah Hockey Club. I'd rather not see Utah Hockey Club because I don't know what that jersey would necessarily look like. Just, I guess, a big mountain or something. Anyways, my favorite of the bunch is Mammoth. To be honest, I think Utah Mammoth is kind of a fun one, and I think you could have a really nice looking jersey with that. So, but it is interesting because you've got Mammoth, Ice, Venom, Fury, Blizzard, all of them not like multiples, not like Yetis where you have, so yeah, we'll see which one they go with. But Venom, I think, is going to get some support. I think there's a lot of people that are going to go with Yetis as well, and there are going to be people who look at those 8 names and say, I don't like any of them. But either way, who's going to be wearing those jerseys, and which players should you be looking for if you're a new NHL fan? It starts and ends for me with Clayton Keller. Like, Keller is a superstar in this league who, once this team gets better, I think his numbers are going to reflect that as well. He's 25 years of age. He's signed till 2028. His cap hit $7.15 million. At the time he signed that contract, it seemed kind of expensive, but looking at it now, it's a bargain. 78 games, 33 goals, 43 assists, 76 points. Keller's very productive and very consistent. And then there's Nick Schmaltz. He's been one of my favorite players for years, 28 years of age. He's signed through 2026. The cap hit being $5.85 million. 79 games played this season, 22 goals, 39 assists, 61 points for Schmaltz. And then there's Lawson Krause, who, big guy, a lot of hits, and pretty good goal scorer too. He is a power forward. 26 years of age, signed through 2027 for a cap hit of $4.3 million. 81 games, 23 goals, 19 assists, 42 points. So Krause, good producer. And with that 23 goals, it's a really strong number considering he went a long time this season without a goal. If Krause gets that consistency, and again, being in a new location could help them with that, I think 30 goals is possible for Krause. Then there's Kerfoot, signed for one more year. He's 29 years of age, $3.5 million cap hit, 82 games, 13 goals, 32 assists, 45 points. Really strong first half. I thought the second half of the season was a bit more of a mixed bag for him, but he's a good veteran presence. Then you've got Matias Maccelli. I'm never going to say anything bad about Maccelli. 23 years of age. He's a restricted free agent in 2026. His cap hit currently $3.425 million. 82 games, 17 goals, 40 assists, 57 points. I think there's a 25 goal scorer there, maybe even 30. I think he's a good scorer who prefers to pass first. But if he ever decides, you know what, I'm going to change it up and start shooting more, I don't think there'll be any complaints from his coaches or from the fans. So there's a lot of good players, and what's interesting is your prime years in the NHL are considered between like 24 and 29. In that range, there's a lot of really good players in that prime period there for their careers. Then there's Bukestad, 31 years of age. He signed for another year for $2.1 million. Remarkable steal, that contract. 76 games, 22 goals, 23 assists, 45 points. You have a good top six with those six guys. And you have a solid overall picture of things being not too bad with the Coyotes, now the Utah team. Barrett Hayton, been a bit of a struggle for him this past season. Hopefully he bounces back next year because last season he was part of that line with Keller and Schmaltz, and they were fantastic. He's a restricted free agent this summer. His cap hit $1.775 million this past season. So we'll see how much Hayden gets with an extension, but I would think probably a 2-year bridge contract. He only played 33 games, had 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. So odds are he's not going to get a big raise over what he got this season, and it's probably a 1 or 2 year deal, a show me type contract. And then there's Logan Cooley, and there's rightfully a lot of excitement about Cooley. 19 years of age. He's a restricted free agent in 2026. His cap hit $950,000. 82 games this year, 20 goals, 24 assists, 44 points. And Cooley got off to a slow start. So while Kerfoot cooled off a bit, Cooley's play picked up a bit during the season, and Cooley could very well be a star in the National Hockey League. So the 44 points is pretty good, but the reality is he's only going to get better. Every now and then with Cooley's game, too, you get these flashes of what he's going to be able to do at the NHL level. He had one of the most beautiful goals of the season, but it was in the preseason, so I think the sky's the limit. And then there's Kirk Coney, 27 years of age, had a career year. I don't expect him to equal it next year, but hey, $775,000 cap hit next year. If he can hit 15 goals, you're still quite happy at $775,000. Played 74 games, 21 goals, 8 assists, 29 points for Carcone. So again, I expect his goal total to drop probably next year, but hey. The question mark is, who's on the defense next year? Nobody signed past this season on their blue line. Nobody. Other than Shea Weber, which is dead cap. We'll talk about it. So Sean Durzee's a restricted free agent this summer, 25 years of age, 76 games, 9 goals, 32 assists, 41 points. His cap hit $1.7 million. I would think he at least doubles that this summer. At least. Very least, because that'll be $3.4 million. I think with the 40 points Durzi put up and his ability to run a power play, it's probably going to be more than that. You got Josh Brown. He's an unrestricted free agent. His cap hit this year was $1.275 million. 51 games, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points for him. Valimaki's a restricted free agent. Made $1 million this past season. At least that was the cap hit. 68 games, 2 goals, 15 assists, 17 points. I have to throw in this is the cap hit because players may not make what their cap hit shows from one season to another. It's just that's the average. J.J. Mosier, 23 years of age. He's a restricted free agent. He's going to get a raise over that $866,667 cap hit. 80 games, 5 goals, 21 assists, 26 points. I'm a big fan of J.J. Mosier's game. Dermott, 27 years of age. He's an unrestricted free agent. Made $800,000. 50 games, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points for him. Kesselring's a restricted free agent. So again, that means they still have the rights to him as long as they give him a qualifying offer. $925,000 was the cap hit for him this past season. 65 games, 5 goals, 16 assists, 21 points. Just an amazing season for Kesselring, to be honest. I mean, does he take penalties here and there that you're not happy about? Sure. But considering the lack of hype around Kesselring. I thought he played really well. Soderstrom's been a bit of an issue for them. 23 years of age, restricted free agent this summer, $863,333 cap hit. He only played 3 games for the Coyotes this past year. I don't know if Soderstrom's still part of the organization's plans now that they're moving and everything. I don't know what happens with him. Kolyachonok impressed in a late season call-up. He's 22 years of age. His cap hit, $789,167 this past year. 5 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. So there's room here to either you don't qualify the players and you let them walk as unrestricted free agents, or you qualify them, you extend them. But there's definitely room here to bring somebody in and to add a defenseman or 2 if the team sees fit. And then you got the goaltending. The goaltending's pretty well set. Both goaltenders are 27 years of age, Vejmelka and Ingram. Vejmelka is signed for 1 more year at $2.725 million. This year, 13, 19, and 2 with a save percentage of .897. A bit of a tough season for Vejmelka, although the second half he improved a bit. Ingram had a great start and fell off a bit in the second half. In fact, part of the reason that the Coyotes fell out of contention for the playoffs was Ingram going from world beater to not. He ends up 23, 21, and 3 on the season, .907 save percentage, but that $1.95 million cap hit till 2026, that's a steal of a deal for Connor Ingram with the way he played this past season. Then you got the dead cap. So the contract they took on of Shea Weber's, that's until 2026. The cap hit there, $7,857,143. So if the Utah team spends to the cap, it means you throw him on LTIR. He's never going to play again. Weber's been out since 2020. I believe it was 2021 during that Stanley Cup final. Last time he played a game, he hasn't played since then. So the expectation is he's not going to play again. And this is where some will be finding out, wait, don't they have those other contracts? No. The plan in Arizona was that was the last dead contract they were going to pick up. They weren't picking up other contracts because the plan was this team was going to start getting better. They'd be able to spend to the cap once all the young guys came up and their contracts were due, and all that dead cap money gets removed from the books. But again, what it does is it leaves Utah in a position where, again, I don't technically qualify it as an expansion team because you're getting an entire roster from somebody else, so that technically is not the same thing. But this is a roster that they can really make over this summer. They don't have to have the kind of loyalty to the players that Arizona would have because they don't have that amount of experience in the community, and fans in Utah aren't necessarily going to worry about guys being traded out or brought in who they're not that familiar with. Now, the draft table, they're set. Now, I'm going to come over here and talk about prospects and good players and all that too. But there's going to be a lot of draft picks going to Utah. Now, the Coyotes had their own first-round picks in 2024, 2025, and 2026. They were not moving those picks. 3 second-round draft picks this year, 4 second-round draft picks next year, and in 2026 they've already got 3 second-round draft picks. So for the Utah team, what they can do, I'm going to keep saying Coyotes by accident because it's going to take a while to train my brain on that, but what they can do is they can move those draft picks and pick up players if they decide, well, we're not going to do the whole rebuild thing. We think we can make this team good right now. And then third round, they've got 3 third-round picks this year, 2 next year, and 2 in 2026. So lots of first through third-round draft picks for them. Fourth round, they've got 2 fourth-round picks this year, 1 in 2025 and 2026. They have their own 5th-round draft pick every year of those 3 years. 2 6th-round draft picks this year, and then their own in 2025 and 2026. And they have their own 7th-round pick this year and in 2026. They do not have their own 7th-round draft pick in 2025. But this is a team that's been stockpiling draft picks and young players for a while. And Dylan Guenther, who, I mean, every now and then they should call the Canucks and say thanks, because that was part of the OEL trade. That draft pick Guenther, which I was assured at the time, don't worry, it's not a great draft. What's Guenther going to be? Well, 45 games this year, 18 goals, 17 assists, 35 points. So while there's a good top 6 worth of players here, you've also got Guenther, who's a top 6 player, which tells you that this team in Utah could roll 3 scoring lines next season. Absolutely could roll 3 scoring lines. You can put together a pretty hard-nosed 4th line as well. This is not going to be an easy team to beat next year with the right moves made in the offseason. And then they've got Josh Doan, 11 games played, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points. I don't think Josh Doan's going to be a huge point producer at the NHL level. I think this was a really strong run by him at the end of the season, but still, Doan looks like he's going to be an NHL player. And again, I've already got a bunch of guys here in this top 6 and everything, and yeah, this is pretty impressive. Then you got Connor Geekie, a former first-round draft pick, yet to be signed by the team. Geekie projects as a really good top 6 forward, could be a top liner. Then you got Daniil Boot, who they drafted last year, first rounder. Dmitry Simashev, a defenseman, who they drafted in the first round last year. Simashev's seen as potentially being a really good top 4 or top 2 defenseman at the NHL level. Former first-round draft pick, Maverick Lamoureux. Next year might be the year where Lamoureux gets a chance to show what he can do at the NHL level. But, again, there's no necessary rush to that. We'll see what their blue line looks like. Again, no idea. And then you've got, if you're looking for a goaltending prospect, you have Michael Herbel. Herbal, I should say. But he's playing at UMass and probably needs a little more time to work his way up to being an NHL level goaltender. But that's kind of how that works. I mean, you could bring in a forward at age 18 or 19. Defenseman is usually a little bit later, and goaltenders a little bit later than that. Usually, there are exceptions, but usually it takes a little longer for defensemen to learn the NHL game and a little bit longer still for goaltenders to get their game up to NHL level. The cap space this team is going to have on July the 1st, currently, barring any trades or anything, of course, $43,264,524. So, it's a lot of money in cap space. And this is a team that already has, I think, a pretty decent roster they can cobble together. And they're going to have a ton of cap space to add players. And when they call players, first off, the Coyotes never really had much trouble that I saw in enticing players to sign with them or to come back. Players that got traded out, like, for instance, Bugstad. Stetcher went back there after they traded him as well. Now that uncertainty about the building, the uncertainty about the location is gone, might make it even easier for them to pick up players now that they're going to be playing out of Utah. So this could be quite the summer for this team. Maybe it will look quite different than what the Coyotes did that finished out the season, or maybe it'll look very, very similar. Either way, it's going to be tough for Coyote fans who still follow the NHL to watch what happens, especially if this team does end up fighting for a playoff spot or maybe making it to the playoffs next year. But it happens. Absolutely, it happens. Quebec fans know all too well when a team gets moved and it looks like they might be on the verge of something. The difference being the Nordiques were a pretty darn good playoff team at the time that they were moved. The Coyotes were still building to that. So you get a pretty good team in Utah, and I've said this for years, and I've seen people say, this team sucks, and I'd rather have an expansion team. I think if you have this roster and that much cap space, I think you're pretty happy. Obviously, a lot of these players are going to eat up a lot of that cap space, but not $43 million worth. In fact, I'd go as far as to say shouldn't be more than, $20 million worth with everybody? And that's if they all get maybe the most amount of money they could get. I just don't see it. So, very interesting summer. It was going to be, as I said, it was going to be interesting for the Coyotes anyways, but it makes it a little more interesting, adds a little more intrigue with the team being in Utah. And for a while, this will be the garb that I wear when I talk about the Utah team. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.